Please join me in welcoming Mr. Dana Messina.
Well, thank you, Dean Q. And thank you to all the faculty who've welcomed me back to campus. Honestly, I never thought I'd be here. I'm truly honored to be here today and want to begin by congratulating all of the graduates as well as their families and friends who've helped them along the way. I know this is no easy feat. In fact, back at my graduation in 1983, I don't think there'd be a single person in my class who would expect me to be up here, including me. The Messina, are you kidding me factor has boosted the attendance of my 35-year reunion this weekend. I even have an old roommate here, Coops. Can you believe this? Nevertheless, 35 years later, here I am, knowing just a little bit more than I did then. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to my wife about what an honor it is to be asked to give this commencement speech. Yet the thought of standing before all of you today and imparting what's expected to be serious life advice was daunting. But then my wife was quick to remind me that none of you are listening that closely anyways. In fact, when she asked me who my commencement speaker was at Tufts in 1983, I said immediately and emphatically it was the Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, although I did admit I didn't remember a single word she said. I did a little research. Turns out our commencement speaker was actually the late Senator Ted Kennedy. So it's a huge relief knowing that nothing I say today will have enough influence to send any of you spiraling in the wrong direction. And since I realize I may lose some of you soon, let me start by summarizing the 3 pieces of advice I wanted to discuss today. Hold on to your favorite toy, don't be a jerk, and always strive to be the dumbest person in the room. That's the advice. Now, for those of you that are still listening, let me explain what I mean. First, hold on to your favorite toy. For me, that toy was an erector set. Nothing more than an old-fashioned version of Legos. It's been that way since I was a little kid. And remember, back then, they let us actually play with real metal parts. To my parents' dismay, rather than study, I spent most of my time and stayed up way too late, building cars, boats, bridges, all sorts of crazy stuff. In short, playing with that toy made me happy. In retrospect, it's really no surprise I came to Tufts to study mechanical engineering. It was real-life erector set training. While my trajectory to Tufts and eventual career path that I'll tell you about a little later seems completely logical, in truth, neither was that deliberate. But had I simply paid more attention to my favorite toy, which I now know is a tangible representation of what I wanted to do, things probably would have made more sense. So rather than give you a line about following your passion, especially since it's been said that 80% of us don't even have a passion, I want to keep it simpler than that. Hold on to your favorite toy. If you do this, your work will, I believe, feel a lot less like work. Here's how this unfolded for me. My first job out of Tufts was building nuclear power plants. I was one of 1,000 engineers trying to get all the details sorted out on these big, complex mechanical systems. I had to figure out, for example, if the metal and concrete were thick enough to take a direct hit from an airplane. It's pretty cool engineering, but it took about 10 years to build one of these plants. And I quickly realized this was not my kind of erector set. So I found a different type of erector set. I went to Wall Street to become a financial engineer. I ended up working at a firm called Drexel Burnham in Beverly Hills, California. And these guys were the ultimate financial engineers and innovators, and their products changed the way Wall Street worked. It was an incredible training ground, and needless to say, financial engineering was a lot faster paced, and I found it pretty cool to understand how to use capital to fuel a business. Sexy even. Lots of computers, numbers, and of course money. While my stint in finance was definitely a great education in its own right, my inner engineer was telling me I needed to get back to playing with some sort of erector set. So what did I do? The only thing anyone would do in this situation. I bought a bankrupt trumpet company. Naturally, right? But seriously, it turned out it made a lot of sense. The company had more than 1,000 people pounding on pieces of brass, turning them into trumpets, trombones, and saxophones. At the time, the company didn't make any money, but we were making music with CNC machines, drill presses, plating tanks, buffing wheels, conveyor systems, all kinds of other fancy equipment. There I was in Elkhart, Indiana, in the middle of nowhere, and I couldn't have been happier. Nothing like a few 100,000 square feet of machines to make an engineer genuinely happy. I was right in my wheelhouse. I had, in effect, a brand new and very cool erector set. Once I got the hang of it, I looked up great. For me, that was buying another music company called Steinway & Sons. For those of you who haven't heard of Steinway, it's an iconic company known for making the world's best pianos. The Beatles, Billy Joel, Andrew Lloyd Webber all composed their music on a Steinway. And while most of the world thinks about music when they hear the name Steinway, to me, it was all about engineering. These guys were turning wood, metal, and wire into stunning, world-class pianos. To build a piano, you need giant laser-guided saws, huge CNC machines, and even a few robots. Lots of really cool engineering goes into building a piano. Where am I? Oh. During my time at Steinway, I kept adding all sorts of other machines and high-tech tools so that we could build oboes, French horns, violins, and other instruments. If you look up at any orchestra in the world, the erector set we put together made just about everything up there. Now, we were making music, and really good music. I never set out to build a career in the music industry, and I still know little about music beyond the fact that I like it. But by holding on to my toy and remembering what made me happy, I ended up building one of the largest music companies in the world. So after you understand what your favorite toy is, my next two pieces of advice are geared toward helping you succeed in any chosen field. First, don't be a jerk. And second, always strive to be the dumbest person in the room. I'm not saying you always have to be the nicest guy in the room. I'm saying just don't be a jerk. In fact, I truly believe that not being a jerk is how I ended up owning Steinway. Let me explain this a bit further. When I got the call that Steinway was for sale, I quickly learned that the company was the equivalent of getting a call that the Mona Lisa is for sale. Some shockingly large percentage of the world's billionaires wanted to own this little company. And then there was me and my merry crew of guys making trumpets and saxophones in nowhere, Indiana. Only one small fact stood in the way between us and owning Steinway. I didn't have $1 billion. Truth is, I didn't have a dime. Still, our team went for it, enthusiastically pitching ourselves as the right owners for one of the most esteemed and iconic music companies in the world. Throughout the process, we were polite, energetic, obviously very naive, but somehow they kept letting us hang around. As we made it further and further into the bidding process, we, along with 3 other finalists, were eventually invited to meet with the Steinway management team. And while I didn't think there was a chance we'd win, I also recognized that we had nothing to lose, literally. So forward we went. My ragtag band was competing against some of the largest industrial names in the world. I don't know what happened in each meeting, but after the day was done, the managers we met with wrote the owners a letter and said they were going to quit unless they sold the company to the band guys. That's what they called us. I found out later the Steinway managers could care less about our grand plans for the company or our music pedigrees. It just turned out the other 3 bidders were jerks. Lesson learned, don't be a jerk. Okay, this brings me to my last topic. Always strive to be the dumbest person in the room. I think this one's pretty important and probably difficult for you guys. The reason this is going to be hard for you is you're all pretty bleeping smart. That's about as polite as I can be. You wouldn't be receiving today's degree if it were otherwise. So I know this piece of advice won't always be easy. If you can train yourself to take a humble approach to life, I promise it will pay dividends. You will be amazed at how different, optimistic, and happy you will be compared to the rest of the world. And at the very least, you will get a jump start on how your kids and spouse are going to treat you. Trust me, that's coming. And when you endeavor to be the dumbest person in the room, there are 2 great results. First, you're more easily able to see what people bring to the table. And second, you have a much better chance of surrounding yourself with the right talent. I hate to say it, but this trait's more important today than ever, as we live in a world where politicians, business leaders, pundits, celebrities, you name it, have all perfected the art of saying what's wrong with someone. If you want to be different, and I mean different, figure out why everyone you deal with is amazing, and look for what they are good at and what skills and insights they have that you don't. Make it your job, your priority to figure it out. If you root out the amazing in someone and put them to work doing what they're really good at, they will move mountains for you. Seriously. Okay, one last story, and I promise to wrap this up. A few years ago, I got a call out of nowhere from the Vatican. Yeah, the Vatican. Pope Benedict was looking for a piano. All right, I promise this does not turn into a priest and rabbi joke. All right, Pope Benedict loved to play the piano, and the Vatican wanted to surprise him with the very best piano, which is, of course, a Steinway. In my 20 years leading the company, I'm not sure we ever just gave away a piano, but when a pope calls, you answer. And yeah, the Pope got a free piano. Fast forward about a year, I was in China on a work-related trip and received another call from the Vatican. This time it was to let me know the Pope was free in a couple of days and he wanted to see me and my team in Rome. I was stunned by this request, and after I agreed to go to Rome, I realized I had not asked a single question about the trip. As our team boarded the plane, I began managing my expectations so that I wouldn't be disappointed if I never actually got to meet the Pope. I mean, after all, I'm just a local kid from Boston. His parents never went to college. I was lucky to have an opportunity to go to a place like Tufts, and here I am getting a call from the Vatican. The Pope wanted to meet me and my team. Seriously? It all seemed pretty far-fetched. But as soon as we arrived, it was like some sort of state visit. We were whisked off to dinner with a prince, a bunch of cardinals who provided us with the game plan. The next day, we would attend Pope's weekly Mass, which is delivered in front of 80,000 people, a little bigger than this, and we join him up on stage at some point. After Mass, we would go with the Pope to St. Peter's Basilica to hang out. Yeah, okay, sure. Spending time with the Pope isn't exactly hanging out, but it was one of our team's most surreal experiences. As it turns out, the Pope wanted to personally thank us for his piano. Playing the piano was the Pope's way of relieving his stress, and it brought him great joy. It was his favorite toy, probably his only toy. And fortunately, we hadn't been jerks, and we had just given the Pope a piano, asking for nothing in return. More than that, it made me realize the depth and talent of my amazing team. While I knew about engineering, I knew nothing about music, but I'd worked tirelessly to surround myself with the best people I could. At that moment, I realized I was definitely the dumbest person in the room, and St. Peter's is a pretty big room. Had I let ego or hubris get in the way, we would have never been able to build Steinway into the company it had become. This was a highlight moment for me, and one that I, and most importantly my team, will never forget, and it all came about because I was the dumbest guy in the room. So do yourself a favor and remember these couple of things. Even the simplest of hacks can change your life, or at the very least send it in directions you might have never expected. And for those of you just waking up, you haven't missed anything. Here it is again. Hold on to that toy, don't be a jerk, and strive to be the dumbest guy or gal in the room. Congratulations again today on today's great achievement, and I sincerely wish you guys the best. Thank you.